Right, just had everyone join. Just going to kick off. Just like to welcome everybody to the webinar between ourselves, Integrity360 and Fortinet. And today we're going to be talking about zero trust architecture. Just way of introduction, just so you know that I'm Ellis Reed. I'm one of the solution architects here at Integrity360. I just hand over to Simon just to give a quick intro.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is Simon Fox. I'm an assistant engineer at Fortinet.
Perfect, thank you, Simon. So just so everybody know, just a few sort of housekeeping rules. We're going to be recording today's session so we can share it afterwards. There'll be Q&A going through and where we can obviously collect questions and then do a quick Q&A session at the end. So fire those questions in at any time and we'll circle back round to them at the end. If we can't get to the questions, depending on how much time we have left, what we'll do is we'll follow up to all participants in an email just to give you answers to those questions. So don't worry, they will get answered. And there will be a couple of polls, a bit of interaction. I'd like to keep this as interactive as possible. So we'll launch a couple of polls throughout today's session. So with no further ado, I'll get started. So we talk a lot around the evolution of enterprise architecture. You know, it's been influenced by a lot of what you see on the screen. A few key ones that I think we've seen over the last couple of years is that we've seen a shift from office-based working to a work from anywhere model. There has been a large shift to cloud workloads, whether it's been to cloud infrastructure or SaaS-based collaboration tools or applications. So working practices we found that have become more dispersed. These developments have collectively transformed how business operate, you know, increasing flexibility, scalability, and efficiency. However, with this rapid evolution, you know, it's introduced significant challenges for a lot of our customer security teams. You know, the diverse and dynamic nature of these changes makes it increasingly difficult to maintain comprehensive visibility control around all of these areas. What we're seeing is that security teams must now navigate more complex landscape where traditional security measures are often insufficient. You know, this requires new approaches to protect the business to ensure robust security across all elements of these architecture pieces. This is where a lot of businesses are looking to adopt the zero trust principle. You know, where zero trust operates is on the principle of never trust and always verify, meaning that, you know, no entity, whether inside or outside the network, is trusted by default. You know, we feel that this approach is crucial in modern enterprise architecture to help drive success. You know, what we're also seeing with that zero trust strategy is technology consolidation. You know, and within that consolidation piece, where it makes sense, we're seeing, you know, enhanced security posture, simplified management, and improved visibility, which enables us to get greater control over sort of our security landscape, no matter how dispersed. Now, this slide sort of has been taken from a Gartner Security and Risk Management Summit, but this sort of highlights, you know, top reasons to why we're seeing customers in the, you know, and the ecosystem being consolidated. You know, things like improved overall organization's risk posture, improved organization security capabilities, you know, to be able to then leverage a protect and detect and response maturity lifecycle, strategic fits, and, you know, being able to, you know, achieve more with less in terms of flat reduced security teams. You know, staffing requirements can become quite demanding. The more dispersed you have your security tools and the more dispersed you have visibility, trying to bring that all in centrally to a single view. With that in mind, what I'm going to do is just start with our first poll of the day. If you just bear with me. Just to sort of get a feeling as to everyone's sort of drivers. So just bear with me. What I'll do is I'll start the poll. You should see that pop up. And what I'll do is I'll leave it a minute and then we'll share the results. Okay, start seeing responses coming in now, so great. Let's give that another 30 or so more seconds, and then we'll swiftly move on. So we can see here that in terms of a lot of primary drivers, improved security, which obviously is good, and simplified management seems to be taking top slots there. You know, we're looking at integrating with existing infrastructure. I think that's quite an important one because, you know, not everything obviously is with a single place at a single time. So again, having those integrations, be able to give visibility is quite important. Also, you know, looking at lack of in-house expertise. So again, it is something that does take time to train, does take time to educate, and you know, be able to have a robust sort of training scheme, having time to do the training, and being able to simplify that as well is quite important. And obviously, in terms of on journeys, you know, a lot of the people here are just sort of starting to explore. Interesting to see that we have had partially and fully implemented as well. So, you know, it'd be interesting to find out a bit more about that. But without further ado, what I'll do is I'll move on. I'll share the results as well at the end of the webinar as well. So without further ado, I'm just going to hand over to Simon, if that's okay, and Simon will take us through sort of the Fortinet fabric ecosystem. So thank you, Simon.
Brilliant. Thanks, Alice. Let me just go ahead and share the screen now. If you just let me know when you can see it, that'd be fantastic, please.
Yeah, we're good.
Fantastic, brilliant. So yeah, good morning, everyone. Just to reiterate, my name is Simon Fox. I'm a channel systems engineer at Fortinet. Today, what we're going to be doing is talking about Forti SASE, so our zero trust architecture and how that all encompasses our SASE solution, our SASE service. So as part of the agenda, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about why SASE. Okay, why does it actually exist? Why is there a need for it? Current trends and challenges we're seeing in the marketplace. Analyst view, so how Gartner sees security and networking converge, and then the particular Forti SASE components, what makes up Forti SASE. We've got some use cases as well that I'll go through, and then at the end we're just going to round it off with some industry examples, so what's actually happening out there, what we've seen with certain customers, that sort of thing. So current market trends, what we're currently seeing is an increase of hybrid workforce. So obviously a lot of people were working from home before COVID, but since COVID hit, around about 2019, 2020, I believe it was, a lot more people were working from home or working from coffee shops as an example. The cloud journey, so move of in-house applications being migrated from on-premises to public cloud environments, or a bit of a hybrid of the both. We talked about zero trust, or Ellis alluded to this earlier, so removing traditional VPN, which allows access to the entire network or a subset of addresses, to ZTNA, so that's zero trust network access or architecture. And then vendor consolidation, something that Fortinet's been doing for quite a long time as part of our fabric and our large portfolio coming together. We're seeing about 75% of organizations are pursuing to consolidate. There are some network and security challenges that customers face out there. So there's the complex and inefficient WAN. If you can imagine that you've got all these different branch locations, they're all connecting back to the head office. You've got the WAN that would need to be increased, the bandwidth over time as the company grows. You've got all the security policies based on that head office. The firewalls would need upgrading over time, etc. There's also expanded attack surface as part of that. The lack of visibility, all different tools, whether it be for switches, access points. And then you've got the network operations center and the security operations center coming together, or at least trying to, using different tools, trying to understand what's going on. There's also the current technology, which really requires transformation. So if you think about that, you've got a remote user using a client machine. Typically, they'd have a VPN tunnel that connects back to their main data center, their hub, and then break out traffic from that location. You can also have split tunnel, where the traffic may go directly out to the internet from that point and not go through any security policies or any security checks whatsoever. Got the VPN access. As I've said, once you connect back into that central location, you're able to gain access to predominantly the whole network, if you wish, and all different types of applications without any further checks. So it's low visibility also for SaaS applications and control for data, for things like Microsoft 365 or Salesforce, Dropbox, that sort of thing. And then you've got the user experiences as well, and the challenges connecting and having issues around that, as we're going back to the network and security challenges on the previous slide. And then you have that implicit access to all the applications, and then the routing, so the lack of application steering, which is where SD-WAN comes in. So you've got all the different types of remote connectivity on the left-hand side, accessing all these different resources on the right, and the complexities and challenges around that. So what SASE does is it brings it in to a nice unified user interface. Okay, it's our one single operating system called FortiOS 7. That's the current iteration of it, which is across all of our portfolio. There's different ways to connect on the left-hand side, coming through to a point of presence, a global point of presence, and I'll go into that deeper as we go through this deck. And then it's accessing the resources on the right-hand side. So it's all the security policies that all the clients will go through as part of the SASE pod. All of that having a zero trust mindset. So think of a client machine that would traditionally connect into the network. Think of it as the traditional firewall that you've got sort of a castle. You'll gain access to that castle through this VPN tunnel, and then you'll gain access to every part of the castle once you're inside. What zero trust does is it says, okay, are you allowed in the castle, first of all? But all the doors are closed once you get in. You only gain access to the particular door or the particular resource that you're allowed to gain access to. It's a continuous posture check of your client machine. Is the antivirus up to date? Is the Chrome the correct version? Is the antivirus switched on? Are you part of marketing? You only gain access to marketing resources or marketing applications or data. That's where the zero trust comes in. There's a few different use cases for SASE. The thin edge for secure access. So this would be where you've got an access point, you've just deployed it to a remote location, could be a coffee shop as an example, or a small retail location if you like. And everyone that connects to that particular SSID that's being broadcast will go directly to the local SASE point of presence. Okay, so that reduces latency. All the security policies in one centralized location, and providing what they need to gain access to. Either they need to gain access to the hub data, so the data center, or applications, or maybe they just need to go directly to the internet for secure internet access. That capability is there. You also have the secure internet access where you've got the clients and they just need directly to go out. Once again, just like the access point, there just goes directly to the SASE pot. All the security policies will be there and they go direct out to the internet. Utilizing our secure SD-WAN as well. So you can have FortiGates that are deployed. You can have a tunnel that comes directly back to the SASE point of presence, utilizing IPsec and VXLAN. The clients will not even be aware of that, but all the traffic will go through the local SASE pot, and the traffic will be split up from that point. So if you think of it as a global workforce, perhaps if you've got a data center in London, you've got employees working in France or Ireland, whatever it might be, they'll always connect to the local point of presence for increased improvement of performance and user experience. And these are some examples of use cases. And we'll get a bit further into use cases as we go through the deck. So this is how Gartner sees it. So this is a Gartner SASE model. Okay, so in the center there, with the light gray, you can see the core components of what make up SSE, Security Services Edge. And we can offer this as a solution. Obviously, SASE is a complete solution because it includes the access part, which is the SD-WAN, the right-hand side. But it's basically different types of ways to connect, whether it be through just remote users or thin edges, could be like OT environments, IoT environments, whatever it might be, connecting through to that SASE pot with these services that make up Forti SASE, and then accessing the different resources at the top. That's basically the Gartner model. Now, as it stands today, we've not long been in the single vendor SASE offerings when it comes to Gartner. We didn't have enough POPs originally, and we'll talk about that as we move through as well. But we've been market leader with SD-WAN, one of the core components of SASE. Since 2019, actually, we've been a market leader there in the Magic Quadrant. So the single vendor SASE, we are currently a challenger, and for SSE. Now, obviously, we're looking to be top right. And as I go through this, you'll see lots of different parts that make up our SASE service and offering, and things are improving all the time. Just more and more bits are being added to what we're able to do as part of our SASE service. So just getting on to the Fortinet SASE solution then. So as I mentioned previously on the Gartner slide, these are the main core components that everyone will get when they subscribe to our SASE service. So it's SD-WAN, ZTNA, secure web gateway. So that's great for OT and IoT locations, or a device that possibly can't have the client installed, our Forti client, because possibly it's an older iteration of an operating system as an example, or just maybe it's even a machine that can't have the client installed. It's part of the next generation firewall and firewall as a service that makes up SASE, and then you got CASB for them SaaS services and applications. All underpinned with the one operating system, that Forti OS that runs through everything we do. It's that unified management plane, which I'll show you in a moment. It's got one analytics engine, so it can integrate quite nicely with our SOC service. Forti Analyzer is built into Forti SASE. You can also send logs to a Forti Analyzer if you wish. And then also, I'll show you our unified endpoint. So for those that have already got Forti client in EMS as an example, it's the same client that we actually use for SASE as well. And all of this is backed up by FortiGuard Labs. So that's that arm of Fortinet, which takes all threat intelligence and is able to update all of our products and services. So, been talking about SASE. This here gives a good example of what SASE actually is, the actual service and the solution. So in the center, think of this as one of these global points of presence, these data centers, if you wish, that are closer to your users, where all the policies are, and where all the traffic goes through to access the resources on the right-hand side. So different types of connections, as I already previously mentioned. So there's thin edge, which is the access points, also utilizing our Forti extenders, which have 4G and 5G. There's branch and campus, so utilizing SD-WAN, which is one of the core components. That's what makes up the access part of SASE. The Forti client, which we'll touch on in a moment. And then accessing secure internet access, secure private access, and I'll show you what the difference is with that as well. And then secure SaaS access. You also notice we've got the digital experience monitor. So that's a key component, which is actually part of the advanced license. And I'll talk about that soon as well. And I'll show you some screenshots of how that actually works. But that, in a nutshell, is what the Forti SASE service is. Now, talking about SD-WAN, SD-WAN comes included as part of every single FortiGate that's currently out there, especially if you're using OS version 7. So you have the SD-WAN capability, which is part of this service. And SD-WAN is all about the intelligent steering of traffic across different types of connections. So we have over 5,000 apps that are supported. You simply put in, O365 or AWS services, whatever it might be, use this particular connection. And based on a criteria that you specify, say if latency gets to a certain number, you can say failover to another connection. So there's intelligence around how it all works and how it comes together. And you can utilize as many different connections as you like, and you can even load balance between them. But that's what SD-WAN is in a nutshell. This gives us an example of the management interface. So very familiar for those that have used our Fortinet products before. Looks very similar to what a FortiGate would be. On the left-hand side here, you'll see things like all different views of destinations and sources. What you're seeing right now is a dashboard. You can add lots of different widgets, have a nice glance about how many different licenses you've got, particular application bandwidth, managed endpoints that are currently on there as well. You'll have a separate section for security profiles. So this is where you configure things like web filter, SSL inspection, DNS filter, and then you apply this to a firewall policy, okay, a security policy. You'll notice on the right-hand side, we've got a section for internet access and private access. Internet access is, everything that's going via the secure internet access route. And then you've got separate policies for the actual private access as well, all along with having different profile groups. So you can have as many different profile groups for, say, third parties or marketing or finance, whatever you like, and then you apply that to the security policy. So I mentioned unified agent earlier on. It is shared with Forti client. It's very, very familiar to those that have used our client before. These are the different types of capabilities it's got. So ZTNA, that's Zero Trust Network Access. Traditional VPN, if you require that. CASB, Secure Web Gateway. Every single Forti SASE service that's purchased also gets access to Forti Sandbox Cloud. That comes as part of the SKU, as part of the licensing. If you've already got a Forti Sandbox solutions, maybe on-prem, you can actually use that as well in conjunction with this, just like I was mentioning with the Forti Analyzer earlier for logging. Also comes with endpoint protection and vulnerability scanner as well. And I'll touch on a digital experience monitor in a separate slide. Now, we have two different types of Forti SASE POPs. We have Fortinet POPs, okay, which we've got about 30 to 35. And then we've also got Google POPs. Now, the Google POPs have got over 100, okay. The standard and advanced license are just Fortinet POPs, and the comprehensive can be a mixture of both, okay. So that you can see here as an example, the types of locations that we've got. In some countries, we've got dual POPs, and this is increasing all the time. So some particular use cases. So secure internet access. So this is where the client AP or agentless for secure web gateway goes through to our Forti SASE POP, goes through all of things like security policies such as web filtering, antivirus, DNS, file filtering, sandbox, then gets access to the internet. Can also have the capability for certificate inspection and the SSL inspection as well. You have secure private access. So this is where you've got a data center or resources on-prem or in the public cloud, where you've got, say, a FortiGate that actually looks after these environments. There's two different ways to use secure private access. There's through ZTNA, which comes included as part of the FortiGates, and SASE takes part in this overall ZTNA solution as basically where the certificates would be shared from, the policies and tags would be created, and all of that is shared with the access proxies, where these data and application exist. That utilizes our Forti client, and all the traffic is encrypted. And it talks about, on the bottom left-hand corner here, that continuous device posture. Like I said, if the antivirus isn't up to date, if the antivirus is switched on as an example, and as soon as that posture changes, you will lose access to these particular resources until it's actually the posture is reassessed and it's up to standard. There's also secure private access where a FortiGate is perhaps in the cloud or on-prem, and it IPsec tunnels back in to our local SASE POP, okay? Creates an SD-WAN integration as part of all of that. And then this allows UDP, voice, TCP as well, where ZTNA on the previous slide would just be TCP traffic. So this opens up a lot more capability as part of that. And when we're using secure private access, FortiGates would need a separate license for that outside of the traditional SKUs, which I'll show you in a moment. But the capability is there, and it's all focused on zero trust as well. So this use case is talking about SaaS applications, Salesforce, O365, ServiceNow. We have a few different, or a couple of different variations of CASB. There's inline CASB, which you can use directly from the SASE interface. API CASB, which opens up another interface. And then we've got data loss prevention as well. So we've got lots of different capability around inline CASB, API CASB, and DLP. And this is just basically going into the thin edge one, which as I was talking about earlier. So whether it be a Forti extender, that 4G, 5G capability, it could be that retail location, a coffee shop. All of the access points and Forti extenders will be configured on Forti SASE through the same interface I was showing earlier. You can do zero touch provisioning, so you can get a access point policy configured. It will just get shipped to site, come online, create a tunnel back to the local Forti SASE POP. Some of the advanced features, we've got end-to-end digital experience monitoring. So this is great from fixing customer issues or client issues, if you like, where someone may say, you know what, I'm trying to access a particular resource, but it's just really slow. I'm just not getting the performance I need. The client can see things like CPU, memory usage, disk usage. It will even show information about latency, jitter, and the actual connection strength of the local SSID or the Wi-Fi that's being broadcast. So you can really dig down and to see what's actually going on. You'll see the end-to-end connectivity hops. So you'll see how the FortiGate is performing, how the actual service and the WAN connection is performing. So end-to-end. So this is a really good add-on as part of the advanced license. So going from the standard to the advanced, this just gives you some experience of the hops here. Another component of the advanced license and above would be the FortiGuard forensics. So this is where you've got something on a machine, you would like it to be investigated. You can actually send it to FortiGuard forensics team. You can say any particular action that you've taken to date, reason for escalation, any supplementary logs. You'll send it off to FortiGuard. FortiGuard will then come back with a report. It will say things, okay, this is the endpoint, this is the IP, this is the status of the forensic, so it's been checked, and it will say the verdict. And then as part of that, you can actually, as you can see on the right-hand side, receive a PDF report that actually goes into detail. Now, for those, and I've seen there was some polling information on this earlier, but for those that are concerned about setting up SASE or configuring SASE, maybe utilizing just SSE element and then moving on to access, utilizing SD-WAN, there are some actual onboarding guides and videos and a step-by-step that will go through. So this is part of the advanced license and above. So that capability is there to help onboard users and devices. So I've talked about some of the benefits of the advanced license. It's worth just going through what's actually included as standard. So the standard bundle is then 5 core components that I mentioned earlier. So firewall as a service, secure web gateway, ZTNA, CASB and DLP, and endpoint security. That includes pre-built logs already, or reports, should we say, and logging with Forti Analyzer built in to Forti SASE. It includes Sandbox Cloud. Okay. The SKUs start at 50, so it's 50 users. Okay. And each user will be able to have 3 devices. Okay. The advanced and comprehensive licenses. So as I mentioned, standard and advanced is just Fortinet POPs. Okay. When you go to the advanced and comprehensive, you get a lot more capability, some of which I've shared with you already. You also got dedicated IPs. You'll also be able to use FortiFlex, and I've got a slide on this in a moment. But when you go to comprehensive, you get access to Fortinet POPs, Google POPs, and you can combine the both. Okay. FortiFlex, this is a capability that we have inside Fortinet where customers can buy a certain amount of points and they can spin up and spin down different services. Some of the services are shown on the screen here. It's just to make you aware that Forti SASE is now part of the FortiFlex consumption model. So what I do now is just go through some customer journeys. So I've just picked out a few here, which I think are interesting. So the first one is a software company. So this is a large European software company, which invited Fortinet and 2 other competitors to participate in a selection process. Okay, we actually won this business with a week-long proof of concept. They had different types of challenges. So they had a growing hybrid workforce that they needed to secure. They wanted to lower costs and they wanted to reduce complexity. So what actually happened there was that they went with Forti SASE. They made us our only cybersecurity partner. So they actually make further investments with things like FortiGates, SD-WAN, SD branch. Okay, and they deployed over 10,000 Forti SASE licensing, allowing working from anywhere for secure internet access. And the total business outcomes was reduced total cost of ownership by 50%, gain better performance, integration, and automation, improve user experience, increase network visibility, and again, total control of the cybersecurity infrastructure. So it's worth mentioning at this point that we see SASE as a bit of a journey. So traditionally, we'd like to see customers with a FortiGate making use of SD-WAN, okay, and that intelligent steering of traffic. SD branch, which is where you'd have a FortiGate or an access point or switches at small branch locations. And then moving on to a remote solution which encompasses ZTNA. So whether it just be ZTNA itself or SASE or moving on to SASE. So it's a bit of a journey, really. That's how we see it. This is a healthcare example. Now, obviously, there'd be 24/7 service that would be required here. They had an existing proxy tool that basically provided minimum user protection. They need to gain better control of employees' devices from basically anywhere they work from, whether it be in branch locations. And they also need to secure when they work from anywhere, need to secure access to data center applications. So this particular solutions here was they utilize ZTNA. They also utilize the existing FortiGate next generation firewalls and Forti Analyzer. As I say, that plays very nicely with Forti SASE as part of the solution. And they bought 1,500 Forti SASE licenses to get started. The actual business outcomes were secure access to data center and cloud applications from anywhere via the internet, significantly improved healthcare providers' legacy proxy solution based on that old one, and then better end user experiences, which is what I've talked about through this deck, and then business continuity for all that regular access applications. Now this is the final one I go through now, which is basically a restaurant chain. This is based in the US, but to be honest with you, I think it'll fit any large restaurant chain, to be honest with you. This is a large footprint, so it's 265 corporate-owned locations and another 600 franchises across 38 states. So they basically said that their infrastructure was a mess and they wanted to improve standardization and reliability. They wanted to replace their existing IT environment where nothing was managed and achieve high availability. So in this particular example, utilize a secure SD-WAN, Forti switch, Forti AP, and Forti Cloud. So some of the core components of SASE there. And they went from a team of 5 managing infrastructure down to 1 person in a help desk. They have predictive cost savings and productivity gains in the millions of dollars for a 2 or 3 year span. And I think this one is key. They began the SASE application migration. So as part of that journey, they did the FortiGate, access point switches, SD-WAN, and they were arranging their infrastructure so they could move over to a SASE remote solution. Okay, so it's part of that journey. So last couple of slides now, business outcomes by moving over to unified SASE. It's that consistent security. So 50% reduction in man hours, reduced cost, so reduction in total cost of ownership, and a better user experience by tenfold. And that's just the example on the right-hand side of the overall solution that I mentioned earlier. So final slide now, the FortiOS runs through all of our products, okay? And that includes SASE, so that's one of the core components to keep in mind here for those that are familiar with our products. It's all backed up by FortiGuard for that AI and machine learning, something we've been doing for almost 20 years. It's that single agent, okay, that unified client that is capability across CTNA, VPN, and it's flexible security. So different types of deployments, whether it be secure web gateway for IoT and OT devices, just clients, retail locations, coffee shops, whatever it might be, hubs, the capability is there. And that's it for me. Ellis, over to you.
Thanks, Simon. That was great in depth as well. So thank you. Just going to slide back up. See? So just to follow up on that, from an Integrity360's perspective, I know we've touched very, very heavily here on the Forti SASE and the Forti SD-WAN piece. As obviously I'm sure everyone appreciates, we're going to do quite a lot more. Got quite a nice naming convention, put Forti in front of it and then list your products out. So there's quite a vast array there. It's just to sort of follow up and say here that, at Integrity360, we have full sort of end-to-end capability with the Fortinet security fabric, whether that be consultancy all the way through to managed services. We're an expert partner, been in business over 20 years with over 20 NSE certified engineers and over 300 technical resources spread across 4 SOCs in Europe. So again, regardless of what sort of the Fortinet flavor is, we're able to support you. We help manage, help architect, and if needs be, help alleviate some of those pressures from the internal security teams by offering managed services for you. So again, we're happy to do that. Last piece from me really is that we've got quite a wide portfolio offerings. Whether that be solution specific. Again, we're talking very heavily about sort of Forti SASE and the SD-WAN components today. But again, if you have additional requirements, we can help you with that. All the way through to multitude of services around cyber risk assurance, compliance, awareness training, incident response services, PCI compliance, and then an array of managed detect and respond services we can offer through our security services. So I know we've taken a few questions. Time here, I think, to be able to go through those and answer some of those questions.
Yeah.
So first ones, do you want me to just go through them, Simon, or do you have visibility?
I'm happy to do it, Ellis. Yeah, great. I mean, I've got some good questions here, actually. So one of them is around connecting third-party firewalls to our SASE solution. So via SD-WAN as an example, IPsec tunnels. It would be IPsec tunnels coming back into the local SASE pod. So originally when we started the service, that capability wasn't there. It was just simply FortiGates only. As time's gone on, obviously, customers' feedback is that they would like to make use of their existing infrastructure. So whether they've got Meraki or Juniper firewalls as an example, they want to be able to connect their existing infrastructure into our SASE solution and our SASE service. It's because maybe they want to migrate, or maybe they've got FortiGates at branches, but they don't necessarily have that in their data center. So yes, so providing it's a hub, we do have a list of compliant and tested third-party firewalls that will be compatible with this service. There is a SKU that is available. So yes, we do have that capability.
Okay, thanks, Simon. I think there was the additional question around if you're using an alternative SASE solution, do you provide transition services, i.e. to take advantage of all the setups we've previously done? Now, definitely from an integrity's perspective, we're well versed in sort of the cyber landscape. And if you are using, let's say, an alternative SASE solution, we can come in from an architectural level, from a solution architecture level, certainly, and sit down with you to try and strategize as to what components you're currently using, around that. Additionally, if you're looking to leverage some additional components, but really for me, it drives back to use cases. What does the user experience need to be? Where are the applications you're trying to use distributed? Where are those users distributed? Making sure that the user experience is always consistent, no matter where they are, no matter what they're using. Whether they go into the office, whether they're traveling, globally, making sure that they always have access to the right tools, the right user experience at any given moment, and so there's no reduction in service. Again, security often gets blamed for strangleholding a lot of user experiences, saying, oh, security stops us doing that or stops us doing this. In reality, it should be a sort of a balance between user education to say, look, you are connecting in an insecure manner, therefore you will have a slightly different user experience than you would if you're connecting on like a verified device in a verified location, and passed all the security governance checks. Because at the heart of everything, there's going to be something that the business is wanting to protect. Whether that's intellectual property or whether it's data, whether it's stopping malware exfiltrating or getting into the business. It's trying to understand what those key sort of pivot points are for us to be able to then go in and go, right, okay, what's not working for you at the moment, current solution, how do we drive towards a more coherent solution that provides everything you needed to provide, eradicates the shortfalls of possibly your alternative solution at the moment, so we can help, certainly from a consultancy perspective. Was one more as well. What are the performance impacts of using SASE, especially for remote users? And I guess from my perspective, again, Simon, you might be able to help me out here, but in reality, where a lot of the impact is around what I've just spoken about in terms of user experience. You want to be able to provide that seamless experience, but in reality, that you still want to have consistent security with low latency and high bandwidth. All of that is something that's going to really hit a remote user. And for me, it's being able to provide those monitoring tools, provide that in-depth sort of reporting to say if something is going on, whether that be at the local user's internet connection or it's a point of presence that they're terminating. We're able to dynamically and agilely be able to redirect those applications and redirect that sort of user experience session. So, okay, they might get an extra 20 milliseconds of round trip delay because they've had to go to a point of presence, or are able to isolate the problem down at the user end. So we can actually educate and go, well, actually, your connection is not optimal for what you're trying to do. The rest of the ecosystem, that SASE ecosystem, is firing on all cylinders, and you should have that consistent experience. And also, if that experience does drop, Microsoft have had outages, as has Amazon, has Facebook, other big sort of IT tech firms, and it's be able to track those as well and say we are seeing performance degradation, in the Microsoft space. So if you need to send that user communication out and go, guys, we're seeing a lot of latency, packet loss, jitter with this particular SaaS app or this particular point of presence, we're able to dynamically redirect that, or at least give notification to our user end base.
Perfect answer. Thanks, Alice.
So I have got one more thing. So those sort of questions, those live questions. So again, we can follow up if there's any further questions. By all means, reach out to me or Simon, and we can definitely answer those for you. I have got one more poll, so I'm just going to launch that now and give us a couple of minutes just to answer that now. So hopefully everybody could see that. A few questions around seconds. See what the results bring in. So we're seeing, obviously, in terms of SASE components, critical to the organization, secure web gateway. To be honest, I've seen that quite a lot. We see a lot of users take that component as the first step into sort of a SASE architecture. A lot of it is trying to get away from, the on-premise web proxies, deploying more agent visibility. So when they deploy an agent, they get a bit more visibility over the applications in use and be able to redirect traffic. So again, we've seen that quite heavily here at Integrity. So there's no surprises there. Again, looking at Zero Trust Network, again, there's quite a lot of initiatives going around in regards to the Zero Trust Network access components as well, which we went through today. So again, which benefits of SASE are most important to your organization? Enhancing security posture. It's normally always the way. What we tend to find is sort of a fragmented view on only having certain security controls in certain areas. And we find that, a lot of the time you won't get that coherent single view as well. So you'll have different technology investments in different areas. Some of them might be slightly more in depth than others, giving you visibility down to a certain level, where others might be lacking that layer of visibility. So again, trying to enhance that security posture, making sure that you're only providing access to users where necessary. Again, moving away from traditional layer 3 VPNs that only give you visibility or access on an IP basis and at best maybe a port basis, where we start deep diving into applications, understand the usage, but also start looking at the risk and threat of those particular applications. And that can help them drive positive business decisions around those application usages, or combining things like CASB, where you can get more granular control into SaaS applications. So you allow the SaaS application or application to be used but only by corporate accounts and personal accounts. So you can stop exfiltration of data and things like that. We've seen as quite a good initiative that people have used. And really the last sort of point is around, in terms of the full SASE adoption, most popular being within 6 to 12 months. With a few people saying no plans or within 6 months. Now, 6 to 12 months makes sense. Again, there's procurement life cycles that also influence this. In terms of user experience, a lot of proof of concepts go on in those sorts of stages, where people are, making sure that when they've isolated their use cases for these particulars, that they're able to define those well, deploy them to the necessary teams, because certain people with certain different identities would have certain or different access permissions. That could be, IT or security have different access permissions to HR or sales, or maybe third parties or contractors or external staff. So again, it's making sure those use cases are tested thoroughly, and it does take time to be able to do that. But again, we're here to help in that transition, in that journey. So obviously feel free to reach out to me if anybody wants to obviously discuss it in more depth. So that's pretty much it from us. I'd just like to thank everybody. I'd like to thank Simon for going through, and obviously all of our attendees for turning up and taking the time out of their busy schedules to be able to go through this sort of topic with us. So thank you very much. I think there's no more from any more, so we'll just say thank you, and give you a little bit of time back in your diaries, and just like to say thank you, and yeah, feel free to reach out to us, and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.